sticks. You want to get divorced. You got to throw sticks to get married.
So it's this way with this way.
Okay, let's go.
Backwards?
So that let me just get over with the story of the coin. This is a bit out of place, doesn't go on very well with the ochre colors of the buildings of Rome, nor with the Roman ruins behind it. So this... Now...
What is that?
Now, another very famous building on the square... Another very famous building on the square is the one to the very left. The Palazzo Venezia, which used to be the headquarters of Mussolini. She was just explaining that, you know, to the people, and she said, and Mussolini used to appear on this balcony, and then suddenly the windows opened, and Mussolini appeared. They were making a movie. They were filming right underneath, but she didn't realize that. So there was just this van there, and then, you know, but this window opening and Mussolini appeared. It was timed so well that everybody was shocked.
What building do they call that?
Palazzo Venezia.
And that's where he came out.
Yes, that was his headquarters, his office during the war, and this is where, if he had to communicate something to the Italians, Italiani, this is where he would appear. Signori, I have the intention of becoming very frivolous. To the right-hand side, you see the building with the tower on top? Exactly where the tower is. I had a view to the right, right there. Looks like a castle on top. Exactly that part and the lower floor that used to be the downtown apartment of Sophia Loren and the office of Carlo Ponti. But BP, before prison. And then to the left, this is the historical center. To the left, the column is the column of Trajan, covered up with scaffoldings because they are restoring it. It's dating back to the 1st century after Christ. Before, we saw it from the other side. Now, what we're looking at to the left, they are the imperial forums. Forum of Nerva, Forum of Trajan we just saw, Forum of Augustus, Forum of Nerva, with the statues of the emperors I just mentioned, right in front of the centers that they had built. While here on the right-hand side, we have the Forum of Julius Caesar, and there he is.
That's what I do to others.
Then those Romans spread on the other 6 hills which were in the neighborhood, and this swamp in the center became the natural meeting place. People were coming down to trade, to buy the food, you know, to talk about the political problems. And so very soon, after they drained this area with the first sewer, the cloaca, they start building in it whatever was needed by the community. So only public buildings in the Roman Forum, no private homes. That was the Curia of Julius Caesar. Called this way not because the place where Julius Caesar was murdered. The Curia, the Roman Senate, this building right there with those bricks which are original, by the way, still dating back to 2,000 years ago. Now, this Curia was erected in the times of Julius Caesar and was not yet finished when he was assassinated. So in the meantime, they were using another building, another area of Rome. Then the corpse of Julius Caesar was taken to the Roman Forum, here cremated, and is here the Shakespeare picture, that very, very famous speech of Mark Antony. Romans, countrymen, friends, lend me your ears, and don't criticize my accent, because after all, Mark Antony was a Roman. Paesani, Italiano, Romani. So, the 3 tall columns, of which you see now 1 tall column, because the other 2, they are hidden behind the perspective. They're right behind this bus, just before, you see the trees on the hill? To the right, there is a ruin sticking up, and right in front of that ruin, there is the top of those columns. That was the temple of Castor and Pollux, the twins flying on the Pegasus, the flying horse of those days, the messengers of news of victory to the Romans were those twins. All the most important events of the Roman history, they take place here. And this place became too small, too inadequate in the imperial times, when Rome was the capital of an enormous empire. So the emperors realized that they needed newer centers. So this area here became the monumental area for public ceremonies, but religious and political ceremonies. But the everyday business life would take place in the more modern imperial forums. 50,000 seats capacity, and 8 years includes the quarrying of the marble, the transportation of the marble from the quarries, which are, actually you're going to see them when you go to Tivoli this afternoon. They're in that area, so 12 miles away from the Colosseum. So transporting the marble all the way here, erecting all the marble to the top part of the Colosseum, all in 8 years of time. I dread to think how many thousands of slaves died, in the process of building it, but on the other hand, they really achieved something amazing. And the marble we're looking at is still the original marble. So original that when we get off the Colosseum, the bus to get into the Colosseum, I would like you to notice that on the arch, on the key of the arch of the ground floor, there are the Roman numerals, the entrance numbers, because all those arches on the ground floor, they were all entrances, 84 of them. 4 were the main ones leading to the boxes of the authorities, 80 all numbered. They were meant for the 50,000 spectators. 50,000, as I said, was the capacity. You can imagine what it must have been like when those 50,000 people were coming out of the Colosseum by means of 84 exits. They must have vanished. Now, the performances held in the Colosseum, they were of different kinds. The gladiators' fights, very popular, you remember them up and them down. The huntings, gladiators fighting against wild animals, lions, tigers, elephants that had to be imported from all the Roman provinces. And the executions of criminals would take place in the Colosseum as well. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you a little bit, because I'm going to tell you that the persecutions of the Christian people were not held in the Colosseum. Now, after all the movies we have seen, and after all the books we have studied, even in school, they told us that, I'm going to tell you that this is not true. Let us put it this way, that we don't have absolutely records. We don't have any records of Christian people having been killed in the Colosseum. We have sure records of Christian people having been killed in the Circus of Nero, where now the Vatican City is located, in the Stadium of Domitian, where now we have Piazza Navona, in the Circus Maximus, what we're going to see later. But why not in the Colosseum? Because the Colosseum was not yet built in the times of Nero. Actually, in Nero's times, when now the Colosseum is standing, there was an artificial lake right in the center of the park of the residence of Nero, the very famous Domus Aurea, the golden house. You can imagine why it was so called, the golden house, that was so richly decorated. It used to be located right on the left-hand side, on this hill. Why the legend? Because through the centuries, the people must have identified with Nero's palace, Nero's persecutions place. The lions of the gladiators' fights were identified with the lions of the persecutions. 250 years ago, the Pope decided it was not important where. The fact was important, and he consecrated the Colosseum. That's why you're going to see inside a cross. And from that moment on, once it was a holy place, they started respecting it. They wanted to keep it up. And that's why the reconstruction, you see the newer bricks, to support whatever was left. Otherwise, the Colosseum would have gone like many other of the buildings of the ancient Rome. But why? Because after the fall of the Roman Empire, they were abandoned. And then they were used for other purposes. You must have noticed at this point the holes. You see where they took, here we have few holes. And then the earthquakes didn't destroy this part. of the Roman fleet, they would maneuver it with block and tackle.
Qui il Circus a Venezia, dove
Was the date, according to tradition, were the twins Romulus and Remus. The particular one was feeding the bathtub of the emperor. And in fact, the ruins on top of the hill, they are the imperial palaces. As a matter of fact, the cherry races and the persecutions of the Christian people would take place in the Circus Maximus. We're climbing another one of the 7 ancient hills of Rome, the Aventine Hill, and you're looking again right opposite to the Palatine. Now, it was the Emperor Augustus that transformed the country house of his wife Livia into his official residence, and then all the other emperors had new, more wings search, redecorated it according to their means and according to their tastes. So once again, please imagine those bricks faced with the most precious marble. And the building on the island, that yellow building, is an hospital run by monks. While to the right, we have the synagogue of Rome, the Jewish temple, built in 1904. And now, signori, we are about to go abroad, to go to a foreign country, the Vatican City. You do realize that the Vatican has nothing to do with Italy. Completely independent. We are going to visit the part of the Vatican open to the public without any formalities. St. Peter's Square, St. Peter's Basilica. But into the actual Vatican City we're not allowed in. And in fact, guarding the entrance of the Vatican City, the limited, the restricted part of the Vatican City, we're going to see the Swiss guards wearing that very colorful uniform, such as one says was designed by Michelangelo. The Vatican is 109 acres. But you do realize that to the Vatican belong many more territories, what we call extraterritorial Vatican ground. Castel Gandolfo, where the Pope is spending his summer months, his summer residence 20 miles away from Rome, is still Vatican ground. The Basilica that you have close to your hotel is extraterritorial Vatican church. So, but the area of the Vatican, the one behind St. Peter, is 109 acres, completely independent. They have their own post office. Stamps of the Vatican, in fact, are very famous for collections. They have their own railroad and railway station. They have their own newspaper, their own radio station, their own language. Latin is the official language of the Vatican, not Italian. They have their own mint. The currency is the same one as Italian currency. They use the lira, but the coins do look different. They have written on them Vatican City and Republic of Italy, instead of Republic of Italy. And they could, candles could be lit up in front of it, without deteriorating the work of art. And those artists, in the 16th century, when the school was founded, they didn't invent mosaics. I pointed out to you 1,900 years old mosaics. You saw the Venetian ones, the Byzantine ones. And in fact, those artists, they just combined the two styles. Like the ancient Romans were using natural color stones. Like the Byzantines, glass. And they are able to get 28,000 different shades of colors. That's why the mosaics in St. Peter's Basilica are going to be so deceiving for you. And you remember the Tosca by Puccini in the opera? And then she commits suicide by jumping from the top of the castle, singing all the way down. Ok. Signori? Then,
Hadrian.
Adrian, also called Dome of St. Peter's Basilica. Dome back tell you what we're going to do next. First of all,
And you're perfectly right. The Pope appears on that balcony up above the main entrance of the Peter's Basilica. All the way now.
Saremo i veri viventi e verrà il giorno che vivremo tutta la vita eterna che Gesù ci dà.